Thank you for joining us. My name is A'tif Coleman, correspondent of Black Westchester, here with our former mayor, Mayor Young, Clinton I. Young. He was our mayor, and he's been a mayor he hasn't been a mayor since 6 years, and he has served one term from 2008 to 2012. I've reached out to Mayor Young because I wanted to get his response and comment on Memorial Field and the tennis court debacle, as well as the fallout of Keyfoods supermarkets in Fleetwood. Mayor Young, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Coleman. Let me say from the very beginning, I'm really appreciative of this invitation. Certainly, Black Westchester is a powerful voice in communicating the issues that truly affect the city of Mount Vernon. Because I love the city, I'm still involved, and it's just great. Now tell AJ and tell Damon Jones, you were the one who reached out to me.
Yes.
They have not reached out to me,
yes.
And I look forward to this being the first of many great interviews.
I hope so too, Mayor.
Okay.
And I've been fond of your work, and I thank you for joining and
Sure.
accepting my invitation.
My pleasure.
We're going to discuss a few things. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we're going to discuss Memorial Field, the fallout of Keyfood. But before we get into that, a lot of people want to know, especially myself, Mayor, I have to ask you about this extraordinary couple of years in Mount Vernon politics with our current administration, Mr. Mayor Richard Thomas. As you know, there are a litany of lawsuits going on. There is a backlog of projects that have not been finished, such as Memorial Field and the tennis court. I just want to get your, I want to get an understanding of what you think the current situation in Mount Vernon is. What are your comments based on the actions that you've seen of this administration?
Okay, well, let me say this first. I have a tremendous amount of respect for any administration because the people elected Mayor Thomas as they elected Ernie Davis and they elected me.
Yes, sir.
I respect the will of the people. Let me be clear about that from the onset, okay? Yeah. Looking at some of the things that have transpired over the past couple of years, I'm certainly, in many respects, we have been disappointed.
Right.
However, I'm not going to write a position paper on the success or failures of Mayor Thomas. I sat in that seat, I respect that seat, and everyone has their own management style. You know,
Right.
For instance, my dear friend, Ernie Davis, and I are extremely close friendship-wise, but we have different philosophies in terms of management, you know, and therefore, you know, I'm hoping that Mayor Thomas will grow to become a consensus builder. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to do, but you also have to carry out the will of the people.
Absolutely.
I think probably if you're asking for what do I think is blatant, and that is that throughout the city, there's a feeling of no one knows who's in charge. Once again, Ernie Davis and I have different philosophies about management, municipal management. But when I was mayor, you knew who the mayor was. When Ernie was the mayor, you knew who the mayor was. The one thing that I think is blatant about the Thomas administration, people are saying that he's really not in charge in terms of the management, the day-to-day management of the city of Mount Vernon.
Absolutely, Mayor. And as a former county legislator and mayor, have you spoke with the mayor? Have you been able to meet with him and give him advice on what things that he should be doing?
The answer is no.
Has he reached out to you?
No.
No.
But let me say this now.
Right.
I've reached out to him, and I've stated that, you know, again, it's the will of the people.
Right.
The will of the people, and I respect that.
You respect that.
I respect that.
Absolutely.
It's the will of the people. He is the mayor. He should be respected for that, and she should have an opportunity to fully demonstrate that he's going to carry out the will of the people, meaning why those people voted for him.
Right.
You see,
Absolutely.
certainly an agenda was clear. Memorial Field was at the top of the agenda. You know, there are two things that a mayor is responsible for. Foremost, that is to keep a city safe, yes, and a fiduciary responsibility. Those are the two things. Those are the two most important responsibilities of a mayor. Again, fiduciary and keeping the city safe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think one of the issues most residents, that is on most residents' minds is Memorial Field. And you made a pledge as a candidate and as a mayor to effectively address Memorial Field and the tennis court issues. I think it's fair to say that the average resident riding around and walking around town might wonder what is going on with Memorial Field. It's now 2008. You know, we had a groundbreaking back in 2011. I was there. When you were mayor, what was your plan? How did it go? How did it get to the point where there was a groundbreaking and everything was started? Then a year later, everything just stopped, and then it was Memorial Field.
Okay, to answer your question fully,
Please.
let's go back 20 years earlier. In 2007, when I ran for the position of mayor of Mount Vernon, that was not the beginning of the decay of Memorial Field. Memorial Field had been fading for 30 years.
Absolutely.
Back in 1998, when I was elected to the legislature, that was one of my promises to the people of Mount Vernon, was to do something, put a plan together to renovate Memorial Field and make it a viable venue for the city of Mount Vernon, which in turn would help offer services to the county of Westchester, but it was always going to be a Mount Vernon venue.
Absolutely.
Let me be clear about that, because several rumors are floating that there are negotiations throughout the years that the county would take it over and we would never see Memorial Field again.
Right.
Untrue. In probably the year, I want to say 2000, when Andrew Spano became the county legislator, county executive rather, we worked diligently. I brought it to the attention of the legislature, I brought it to the attention of the county executive, and even before Mr. Spano, there was Mr. O'Rourke, who was a Republican, by the way, but it was always discussed, you know, because Memorial Field is such a gem, and again, not just for the city of Mount Vernon, but it's a viable venue for the entire county of Westchester. People were from Pelham and New Rochelle. They had the Turkey Bowl there playing on Thanksgiving Day.
Absolutely.
And going back to when there were two high schools in Mount Vernon, meaning Davis and Edison, they played there. So there's a lot of history there.
Right.
And I saw the decay, and we put together a couple of plans, even under the O'Rourke administration, but unfortunately was turned down for good reason. For good reason. Again, I was a county legislator. Ernie Davis was the mayor at that time, and for good reason. But when Mr. Spano came in, and again, I was in the county legislature, there was available monies to be spent on recreational venues throughout the county of Westchester. Mount Vernon, through my work, and again, I elevated to become the majority leader, and with a little pull, a little bit more power, we were able to negotiate the most money at that time given to a municipality for a recreational facility.
Really?
So I took full advantage.
Of course.
I didn't come in with a small bill down. No, we were going to fully renovate it, make it a viable venue that would also be an economic engine for Sanford Boulevard. You follow me? You know, we would have
Meaning other businesses would be able to take advantage.
prosper
Right.
with just the foot traffic.
Yes.
You see,
Yes.
coming up and down from McDonald's to Memorial Field. Everything in between would benefit.
Right.
Everything in between would benefit.
Absolutely.
Having major sporting events. We've been in discussion with AAU Track to bring track meets up, which is why I insisted that it be a 9-lane or 8-lane track, not less than 8-lane track, because that would be the Olympic-sized track. That would be the kind of track that would attract major track meets.
Okay. So what happened? Why did it stop? Because
we had the groundbreaking.
right.
There were a few things that happened prior to me leaving office. I had a city council that was particularly caught up in politics. And I think that they ignored the true value or vision rather of the need to hurry up while this money was available to us that we didn't have to pay back.
Right.
You follow me?
Yes, sir.
And that was close to $12 million. Close to $12 million. Now we're going back 10 years. In that period of time, that $10 million for construction and labor and materials is probably elevated now. Just that $12 million is probably now $16 million. You see? Now, and that was just the county giving us free money. Now, I had, again, the city council, which is not unusual, that, the mayor's office, we equal branches of government, and they just delayed the process unnecessarily. I think now they see, because I've received some apologies since I've been out of office, Mayor, we should have gone ahead with it, but it was delay after delay after delay for no valid reason. We had a venue that was going to be the best of its kind.
Right.
But we also had the approvals on it, which was not an easy process. It wasn't just the approvals for getting monies, but you had environmental approvals. We had to deal with both the city of Mount Vernon, the county of Westchester, because of sewer lines, and we also had to deal with the state of New York because part of it was parkland. You see, it was a very complicated process, but we were committed to it. Again, having $12 million of free money, you're going to definitely take full advantage of that, or anyone would. It was a no-brainer, no-brainer. Now, it did not include the tennis courts. Now, let me be clear.
Right.
The tennis courts are the tennis courts that I'm speaking of between 2011 and, or rather 2008 and 2012. It was known as the tennis courts at Memorial Field.
So Kayla wasn't there when you were there?
No, and the tennis court itself, even before they got there, was not a part of Memorial Field.
Oh, okay.
You follow what I'm saying? It was not a part of Memorial Field. I met with those residents who thought just me closing the tennis courts down and making room for the 8-lane track. I met with them to explain my vision was after we did a good job with Memorial Field, there was more monies available. I was going to move and had approved plans for a 16 court, let me repeat that, a 16 tennis court venue across behind Target where Hutchinson Field is.
Really?
Yes, yeah. And the monies didn't stop there. We had plans to redo the iconic, most famous basketball court in the Northeast, other than Rucker Park, but we kind of rival Rucker Park. It's 4th Street Playground in Mount Vernon, New York. Right. We had plans to do that over. There was free money. There was monies available. But we had to demonstrate that we were capable of producing a venue on time, at cost, at the budgeted cost, and which was going to be again a true viable venue for our young people. That's what it was all about.
Gotcha. Not
again just an economic boost to the Sanford Boulevard area. Kids were telling me, Mayor, it's an embarrassment to have to, the Razorbacks, when we go to other municipalities, we go to other communities, particularly the majority communities, they play on great, great fields.
I gotta say, Mayor, after doing some research and speaking with a few members, some of your critics say that the reason why things stopped was because of Target. There was a deal or some sort of deal in the making with Target. Target, who is a superstore across the street from Memorial Field, was sitting there, pockets full of money, looking at what was going on with Memorial Field. And they claim that they reached out to your administration to partner up with the city in building a Target Memorial Field.
Okay, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I know time is sort of the essence here. And again, if I have to do a part 2 to amplify, because a Memorial Field is a discussion that needs to happen.
Right.
That's an outright lie.
Okay.
Period.
Yes, sir.
Period. No discussions with Target. no discussions. We did speak to a couple now, and I'll tell you, we reached out to some of the Westchester firms, major corporations like MasterCard, Pepsi,
Right.
etc.
Because Pepsi sponsored the old Memorial Field, because Pepsi had a store across the street, a facility across the street, way back when.
Way back when, that was
Right.
a bottling plant.
Right, exactly, Mayor,
So
yes.
I'm saying to you, Target, that's a lie.
Okay.
It's an outright lie. I know who we talked to, but let me say this. That was for naming rights, okay?
Oh.
That would bring in additional money. It was not necessary to partner with Target or Pepsi or anyone else to build the field because we had the money. I had the
Right.
money in place. Now, that would have been, again, a little extra, which could have been used for many things, you know, but because of what's called an intermunicipality agreement with the county, we had the money.
Got it.
The city council approved. The city of Mount Vernon was required to put in, and don't hold me to this, between $3 and $4 million. We had the money in place.
Right.
We had the approvals in place, which is equally as important to a project of this magnitude. Is to have the money, but the approvals, the environmental approvals, you know.
Got it.
And I've been through this many times,
Right.
you know, which is why I think that there was such a respect of giving me a lot more money that was initially allocated. I was successful in the rebuilding and renovation of Wilson Woods Pool. It was my idea to have a wave pool, which was the first of its kind in Westchester County, and became such a hit.
Really?
And we made the county made tremendous because
That was your project.
That was my project.
How
you
about
know.
that?
Again, on time and within the budget.
Within the budget. And you were also part of the renovation of Prospect Avenue. They redid the sidewalks, they did some stuff with the bus stops and stuff.
Absolutely. Now,
Okay.
let me say this now, you know, because I'm sure this is going to kind of, I'm just foreseeing some additional questions being asked of me. In all fairness, that was started with Mayor Davis.
Okay.
And I completed it.
Okay.
I just want to, you know, I want to give
I
credit
understand.
where credit is,
Where credit is due.
where
I get
credit
it.
is due. But
Yes.
I mean, the Martin Luther King statue that's in front of the courthouse in White Plains, the county courthouse, that was one of my projects.
Nice.
Fortunately, I was able to get the contract. The artist is Milton Sherrill, a Mount Vernon
Right.
guy, and again, on time, within the budget. You know, and I can go on. I mean,
Right.
Westchester Community College, you know, it was another one of my ideas in terms of bringing a satellite location both to Yonkers as well as to the city of Mount Vernon, understanding the socioeconomic challenges, if I must say, of our kids having to go up to Valhalla.
Got it.
See? So why
Got
not
it.
build a satellite campus closer?
Right. So it'll save on transportation.
And more kids would take advantage of the educational opportunities.
Time is of an essence, though, and I do want to ask the mayor a couple of questions, though, before we end. Do you have any regrets?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
and because you did run again after your first term, you did run again, and unfortunately you lost.
Yeah.
And do you have any regrets throughout your administration and maybe your campaign to run again?
Let me say this, you know, losing a campaign is not the hardest thing in life to get over. Let's go back to the re-election effort.
Right.
I think that my administration did a job well enough that warranted getting reelected. I'm a big boy. I understand all aspects of politics. I know that there were different perceptions and et cetera. But there's certain things you can't argue with. Number one, again, I came in on a platform to do Memorial Field over, to reduce the crime rate,
Right.
to do a number of things. I got the money for Memorial Field. We have a new bridge that I promised, the Park Avenue Bridge.
Right.
That's the MTA. I worked with the MTA in getting that bridge done with Metro North. These are things you can't argue with. You can't argue with the fact that I reduced the murder rate in Mount Vernon at 86%. You can't argue with this. I think that warranted re-election. However, my mistake and my regret was thinking that I did not have to. I just thought people knew it. I thought people understood it. I thought
Right.
people appreciated it.
And you didn't campaign as much.
I didn't say I didn't campaign. I mean, the first go round,
Yeah.
I called it all the.
Yeah,
all
I
the
was
famous,
one of those.
Yeah,
We were out there.
You, Denzel, we
Yeah.
could go on and on.
Well, because that was a time in 2008 when Obama was running, so it was all about change.
It was all about change.
And we needed change around that time.
Yeah.
And
So
you were it.
Yeah, so I just thought that, one of the things too, again, is that, and this is just part of being a mayor.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Coleman, this is why I couldn't be out. They said, well, Clinton, you came in and you had it was the most watched, that first, that round one of me and Ernie, that was
debate?
the most watched campaign in New York State in 2007. And it was a thriller.
It was.
It was everything.
It
I mean,
was.
and the thing about it is this. Once again, I want to be clear. Ernie and I never stopped being friends.
Good for you.
We just had different philosophies, and in terms of bringing forth a serious agenda that would move the city of Mount Vernon forward. But I wouldn't say I didn't campaign as hard. The campaign was in 2012 in 2011 was not the same as it was in 2007. They expected all of the stars, etc. And hey, it didn't happen. But
talk about Denzel. Never forget, on YouTube, there's a clip of Mayor Young and Denzel at a Boston Red Sox and Yankees game.
Yeah, in Boston.
In Boston, and you'll see Mayor Young out there waving his hand and stuff. So that was good to see.
But did you see Denzel said, "Sit your butt down"? We're in Fenway Park.
We're in Fenway Park. We don't want no attraction tonight. But I want to talk about real quick, because I know we are pressed for time, Mayor. I want to just bend your ear a little bit about Keyfood.
Okay.
There was a write-up in the Journal News that the city has to shell out $3 million in a lawsuit. You've just described all of the things that you've accomplished and wanted to accomplish. And I wanted to understand what happened with that, because as far as we know, it was a $2.6 million judgment plus interest. They said that your administration refused to supply the grocer parking garage, and that was exclusively for Keyfood. And I'm reading a quote here. The mayor induced Mr. Grizzo, Salvatore Grizzo, the owner, to close the steakhouse so he could that he previously owned, so that he can convert it into a supermarket. What do you have to say about this lawsuit that's now costing the taxpayers $3 million?
Okay, well, again, a little bit more background.
Please.
Without question, A&P closed.
Right.
The other supermarket in Fleetwood closed. Made room for CVS, which again was a great project. It is added to the city, to the commerce of the city. It's added to it. There was an outcry, particularly by the senior citizens in Mount Vernon, in the Fleetwood area. We don't have a grocery store.
All right.
As mayor, I responded. We initially set up buses to transport them from the, which is now the site of CVS, to grocery stores in Yonkers, Pelham, and New Rochelle. And again, such an outcry, and I thought to respond. I can only go so far, Mr. Coleman, in this answer, because there continues to be pending litigation with this. Yes, there was a judgment. Now, from what I understand, there's going to be an appeal process.
Yes, the mayor did appeal.
Okay, so beyond that, I cannot speak because I don't know the particulars. Now, let me say this. I want to say that I went to the Gizzo, to Sal, who happens to be a friend and a classmate at Mount Vernon High. Okay. The Gizzo family has done very well in the city of Mount Vernon as business people, as respected business people. I don't want to get into all of which they ran in the city, but they were successful business people. And yes, there was a series of negotiations. Yes, I did approach him without question. I said, let's talk about this.
Right.
And now there was a contract that was written up. Now, you have to understand too, and again, I want to be very clear, not just because of the pending litigation, But because of the fact that I left office before all of this happened.
Got it.
You know, it was right at the end of my term. So the suit was not initiated until
Right.
after I left office. So what they claim, and let me be clear, what they claim, I don't know.
Right.
Okay, I do know that the initial suit was thrown out, but they did have they could appeal.
Got
You
it.
see, and now I think that we're appealing. But it was good intentions with a contract. Okay, I want to make sure that we understand it wasn't just a conversation and a handshake.
Got it.
It was discussions, negotiations, not solely with the mayor of Mount Vernon, but with my planning commissioner, a number of commissioners, and then with the law department, a contract was written. You see, so again, that was towards the end of my term.
That was towards the end of your term. So had you stayed in, or had you been elected to another term, there's a good possibility you would have really finished that supermarket, and maybe
Well, no, the supermarket opened
it opened,
under me.
but it closed because of lack of business, because there was no parking garage. That's
I
what he's
don't
claiming.
know.
You don't know.
That's
okay.
what's being alleged.
Right. And like
but
you said,
the suit was not instituted until
okay,
after I left office.
got it. And like you said, you have to be tight-lipped about certain things because it's still in the courts. The current mayor, Mayor Thomas, is appealing the decision to award the Gizzos $3 million. But thank you for clarifying that, because a lot of our viewers had some questions regarding that article and that information that was put out there. So thank you for clearing that up.
Unlike Black Westchester, and yes, I've had a long-term relationship with the Journal News, etc. But if my name is mentioned, call me and ask me for a response. Ask me for some background information.
Right.
I think that is fair.
Yep.
I think that is something, again, not just fair to Clinton Young, but fair to your readers. Let them hear the whole story. Let them know the full scope. Just don't make a statement and not give a person the opportunity to respond.
How would you make Mount Vernon great again?
Well, there are a few things. Everything in Mount Vernon is not bad. We have to build upon that. That's number one. We have to build upon that. I think that there has to be a greater focus on our young people, a greater relationship between City Hall and the Board of Education. That's the number one. We have to, again, be mindful that the city has to be safe. That's the one knock upon the city of Mount Vernon throughout the county of Westchester. How safe is Mount Vernon? A safe city provides a good selling point to folks young couples, or anyone who wants to buy a house, buy property in Mount Vernon. And that is that, you have to have a safe city, and you have to have a great school system. One of the other reasons that there has to be a stronger, more cooperative relationship with the school system is that the school system is the largest entity that levies taxes upon the city.
Got it.
People, when they hear the tax rate in Mount Vernon, they see how much taxes are on if they're planning on buying a home or a business or any property, they hear how much the taxes are, and but they don't realize that it's not city taxes. The majority, that 63% of those taxes are school taxes.
Got it. Okay. Well, Mayor, let me ask you this question, and I'm sure you were probably anticipating this question, but do you plan on running for mayor in 2020?
Let me put it like this. Have I been asked by a lot of folks and I'm enjoying the lunches. I'm enjoying the dinners. But,
I like that.
it's something that I have not ruled out, but it is something that, and again, I encourage, your generation. It's time for you guys,
Right.
But, you have to understand that this process, this office of mayor is not for someone who has a microwave mentality on microwave talent. You have to sit down. Once again, and this is my third time saying it, everybody knows Ernie and I are friends, but we differ philosophically. But he's willing to sit down, and I'm willing to sit down. We're willing to sit down together with someone who will listen.
Gotcha.
You know, and it's not that anyone says, well, you know, and one of the things when I got to office was, but this is not how we did it back when, you know, and true. But let's build upon that. Let's see why back then did it work or didn't work, or is it still working, or do we need to can it, you know? But discussing it really is something, you know, whether it be in a public forum or one-on-one. Know the city. Know what the responsibility is of being mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. It's the most blessed 4 square miles on earth. The most blessed. We have more talent, more everything. It's the most blessed.
Prime real estate.
Prime real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know that we're now getting into transit-oriented development, but I lectured up at Yale on transit-oriented development 9 years ago because of the city of Mount Vernon, because of its proximity to New York City, you see? So, again, I have not ruled it out, but let me be clear, this is not an announcement. I'm not even close to making it.
Well, I hope you call us and let us know when you're ready to announce it. So we'll be there.
Or not.
Mayor Young, it was a
My
pleasure.
And please, again,
thank you for coming. Yes.
Have me back. Okay,
yes,
thank you,
I
Mr.
will.
Coleman.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe.
Yes, thank you to our viewers for watching, and have a great evening.